welcome back to CKLA Chats. I'm DLC Foster-Yankey, and I'm joined by my co-host.
Hello, welcome. Ashley Giles here.
All right, so we are Team 3 DLCs, and we are discussing fourth grade Unit 8, Treasure Island. And in this video, we're on Lesson 10, Shiver Me Timbers. Let's jump over to our presentation. Oh, I got ahead of myself. Oh, yep, there we go. All right, so our core text is Chapter 7, Shiver Me Timbers. And students are reading chapter 7. Did you want to read the purpose or you want me to read the purpose?
So you go ahead.
Okay. So students are reading chapter 7 to understand how Jim thwarts the pirates' plan to sail. Oh, I thought that was a period. To sail away on the Hispaniola. And what happens when Jim discovers Long John Silver and his gang have taken over the stockade.
Whoa, taking over.
Exciting. Right. Oh, look at that. Multiple lesson components here. We'll start with spelling for 15 minutes.
It's just spelling. It should just be
Yes,
spelling.
it's just a spelling assessment, so not all this. It actually applies to reading for 45 minutes.
And so for spelling, they're just doing an assessment.
Yeah. So spelling assessment here. They'll come over to reading, review, I think the previous chapter, introduce the current chapter, read chapter 7. Well, this isn't right either. Right, they'll read chapter 7, they'll have a chapter discussion, maybe it's a close reading. Then do some word work for the word collide, and then move on to writing for 30 minutes, where they will be introduced to dialogue.
All right. So for spelling, like we said before, students will apply grade level phonics and word analysis skills during an assessment of targeted words. So basically, the words that they've been writing sentences for and putting into ABC order, they are now going to take an assessment. Um, so this is actually an activity page 10.1, and this is where students are going to record their answers. Using the list, the teacher will say the word, use it in a sentence, and repeat the word. And just inform the students that at the end of the entire assessment, you will go back and repeat. It's a helpful hint for the students when they're trying to write it out to spell it. Use that spelling strategy you taught them for the syllables to help them write each letter, as accurately as possible. And following the top part, the bottom part of that, students are to write this sentence as the teacher reads it aloud. The captain set off on a voyage in search of fortune. The teacher should repeat that word several times. And you're checking for correct punctuation and spelling and capitalization. And that concludes the spelling assessment. And there is a note here, there is, like when you're checking for errors, common errors that students may make with these words. So that's just for teacher use. So it does give you the syllable types that are included in each word and the breakdown on how the words are separated. And basically, the teacher will analyze that data following the assessment.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I wrote a note in my in that section, wondering like, is that work that will happen during PLC? Is that something the teachers do on their own? And then however they do it, like what do they do with that data? How do they use that?
Right, that's something to. I don't know. I think that may be up to like campuses during PLCs when we're discussing how are kids doing. What grade is this? Fourth grade? Yeah, like they should be familiar with, syllables and just their spelling patterns. So I think it'd be a good way to analyze the work. It could be one of those sheets that we pick for that week to look at, that spelling list.
Yeah, 'cause I'm wondering, just is maybe there is some tying in within class somehow. Like maybe this is a reflection of something.
Yeah.
Um, some
Maybe on a pausing point. I don't know. I'm just thinking, could it be in a pausing point type thing, or at the end of the unit enrichment? I don't know, but yeah, that's a good question. When will we go back?
Yeah, because they fill out that form to analyze the spin. So what do they do with it? Like,
Right.
okay, I know this is yours that they're making, but what do I do about it, or do I do anything?
The purpose.
About
That's your intervention could be.
it? Yep.
Yeah, the next intervention time. So on to reading now. So we start off with spelling and then we head into reading. A little bit different than before.
Great. So our focus, the students are going to analyze some choices made by Jim Hawkins, drawing on specific details from the text. Our cub is to do that. Well, students are going to need to know the choices made by Jim Hawkins to understand why Jim makes the choices he makes, and they'll be able to draw on specific details in the text to analyze some choices made by Jim Hawkins, add to their character charts, and write a response to the prompt. Why does Jim give Silver a choice rather than simply beg for his life? Great. So for our reading component, our formative assessment is activity page 10.3. Um, Pretty similar to what they've done in previous lessons. They have a couple of open-ended questions. Number one, number five. Well, they'll need to restate the question, answer in complete sentences, and support their answers with text evidence. They have some multiple choice questions where they will also need to cite the page number where they found their answer. And then number six is the question from the Be Able To. So it asks in the following excerpt, why does Jim give Silver a choice rather than simply beg for his life? And then they have a quote from the text, kill me and do yourself no good, spare me and keep a witness to save yourself from the fate of judge and jury. And students kind of expound on that quote on the lines. And that's this question here. Then there's 1.3, which they've been working on throughout the unit, just adding additional information about different characters. All right, so we're going to begin for 5 minutes. There's a check for understanding where students summarize chapter 6, the plan, and they move on to introduce the chapter for 5 minutes. And basically, the teacher is the same routine. The teacher tells students they're going to read chapter 7. They do talk about how the title is an idiom, and basically, the teacher explains the idiom, what shiver me timbers means to the students, because they say the title is difficult to understand without some background. So they find out there's something that pirates say and why pirates say it. They do the same routine of finding the chapter in the table of contents, um, turning to the chapter. Again, the teacher reminds students to refer to 108 and 109 in their reader, as well as those activity pages with different nautical terms. I have a note to myself, and I probably should have thought of this earlier in the unit, but I thought it would be cool if the teacher just said the class was a ship, and you have those different terms like port. I think port is the front. Have
Yeah,
your ports up at the front, and then your aft, and your starboard, and your I
that's
don't remember
cute.
all of them, but yeah. So have your classroom labeled,
I
hope
like that.
maybe decorated like the inside of the ship,
Yeah, that'd be nice.
yeah, and help them remember those terms.
Terms.
So then they're gonna go over vocabulary, and and this is a two-group lesson. So again, those groups should be established as part of the advanced preparation, not any random choosing of who's working with the teacher and who's working independently or in pairs. So we're on to now we're going to read the chapter for 25 minutes. So you do have students working on this independently. In the teacher group, students are previewing the question on the activity page, reading the text silently, then answering the question. And as they do that, the teacher is posing additional guided reading supports. So something I've thought about is I've seen the two group lessons kind of across this unit and different units is I'm thinking the teacher only poses those guided reading supports as needed.
Hmm.
So if, for example, let me see, on 209, so students are answering a question from the activity page. If the question was posed from the activity page and the students got it, there's no need to pose those support questions.
Right.
So that, yeah, it's like an as needed thing. You're
Right.
not asking all the questions if the students already
If they had that higher level one already, yes.
have. Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. So that is what's happening in the reading. They'll come together and discuss the chapter for 5 minutes. After that, students are going to turn to activity page 1.3, which is the character chart. And the teacher just reminded them that they've been adding on to it throughout the unit as they learn more about the different characters. In this lesson, they take some additional notes about Jim Hopkins, and the teacher does that by engaging the students in a discussion about him and just what other information did they learn about him in this chapter. That's pretty much it for the discussion. They discuss Jim and write some more about him on the card. Then they do some word work with collage, following their word work routine. Part of it is the teacher asks students for some examples of situations where people or things might collide, gives them a sentence stem, blank might collide if blank. It has a couple of students use that in a sentence. There is a sharing activity. I think we haven't seen sharing activity before,
Right.
where basically they work with a partner, describe a situation to their partner in which there is a good chance two things will collide. The partner responds by providing a full sentence to describe the situation. For example, if the first partner says running quickly in a crowded hallway, the partner would elaborate by saying, if I run quickly in a crowded hallway, I might collide with another person. That sounds kind of like cause and effect to speak. I don't know.
Hmm.
And then they switch. And that is
All right. So for writing, the students will incorporate dialogue to develop experiences and events in the adventure story. So as we know, students are writing their adventure story, and this lesson is 30 minutes long. And the teacher is going to start off by telling her students that they're going to oh, let's look at the assessment. I have the composition notebook up here again because, of course, they're going to talk about dialogue, but they're going to be adding that dialogue in their own adventure story. So the teacher is going to set them up so that they can embed this um, inside, so they can embed dialogue inside their own personal stories. So that's why the assessment of is of their journal, because that's where their story is written inside of their journal. So we can go to the next slide. Um,
I think,
yeah,
oh,
there
that's
is
the
one.
last slide.
Oh,
Next one.
I'm sorry. So what is the teacher doing and the student doing? Now this component says 45 minutes. It's only 30 minutes because we borrowed 15 minutes for the spelling component. Oops, my bad, for not changing that. And so the teacher's going to start off, of course, introducing and saying, today we're going to discuss dialogue and how to insert it in your story. So make that connection. You're not just going to learn about it, but you're going to use it in your own personal adventure story. And you're going to have students define the term dialogue. We are fourth graders. Hopefully, we know what that term means. Um, the teacher will ask the student, why is dialogue important? And there are various responses that you could gather or hear from your students. Um, the teacher is going to direct the students to a advanced prep sentence that she has created from the text that has dialogue being used. And students are going to do a turn and talk about this sentence, about what's going on, who's saying what, and why did they use the word growled. And if they wouldn't have used the word growled and they used the word said, how will that affect how the sentence is said and the meaning of it if it's a different word? So word choice matters, and so that's what the teacher is going to stress to the students, that you know that word growled is a powerful word that the author chose to use instead of a boring word or a not so um, big or descriptive word such as growl. The teacher will then ask the students to brainstorm some other ideas or synonyms that the author could have used instead of growled. So the students will be thinking of other words that could have been used. And that helps with the visualization, right? And the interpretation of what's happening in the
Mhm.
story, based off what the character says, how they say it. That is all a factor in that your word choice that you use to put in your paper. It does say offer some support to those students who struggle to think of alternative words. Um, a great turn and talk opportunity first for students to turn and talk first and then share out about that other word for growl. Um, then after you talk about that example, then you're going to tell students, teachers will say, okay, now students, you're going to write dialogue in your paper. Um, they should imagine what the character is thinking and what they're feeling. So when you're putting this dialogue, you got to think about your characters, their thoughts, and their feelings. Explain that the teacher is going to. So to me, this is where the explicit instructions coming in. You're going to explain to the students the rules of dialogue, those punctuation rules of dialogue. So you're going to remind the students that they learned about how to use comma and punctuation marks. So this is a review, so you're just going to remind them back from the geology unit in Unit 6 about how to accurately punctuate it when someone's speaking. Then you're going to go to the reader from Treasure Island and have them reread that example that you prepared in advance, and have them look at the location of the punctuation marks, that they're set off by quotes from the rest of the text. The teacher should remind the students that about the comma, the punctuation marks. So the teacher's just reminding them of students while referring back to examples provided by the text. Um, you're also going to mention some indenting, like if you're going to start a new line and a new paragraph, make sure you indent. That was thrown in there. Like if you want to start a new line with your dialogue, that's what it says. Um, then you're going to have students look at another sentence that you have prepared in advance, um, where it's two sentences. These are from the reader and they display dialogue. And the students are going to read that silently, and without the punctuation, though. So you're going to take these sentences without the punctuation, and based off your explicit instruction you just had about the dialogue rules, now have students add the dialogue to these two sentences you pulled from the reader. Once students add that dialogue, the proper punctuation and capitalization, then the student is going to go back into the reader to ensure that they have corrected it, punctuated it correctly. So the goal is, you're going to reiterate the goal, teachers. Like, remember, we're doing this because you are going to be incorporating dialogue into your adventure story at least 2 times. So they have to have at least 2 instances in their stories where they have used some dialogue. And just a side note, when students learn how to accurately use dialogue, they use it.
Mhm.
So we want to make sure, like, two's great. If they want to do more, yeah, why not? But not overdoing it. But students, what I've noticed from my experience is students will use that dialogue. So I don't want to say don't use it. I mean, it's their paper, so allow them to use it once they have it down. So then the teacher is going to have the students. So there is a support on the side for this dialogue when you're talking about dialogue and the rules. You can provide like a checklist to give to students to ensure that they are punctuating and capitalizing where it's needed. So that is a support indicated in our curriculum. Um, then once they practice that, they've identified it as correct back in the reader. You're just going. Teachers should inform them that think about their characters that they've created in their introduction, and think about some dialogue. And that goes back to the lesson we talked about before. This could be a great hook or a lead, is what we're used to calling those, as a way to start their introduction.
Hmm.
And so the students could start off with their hook being dialogue, somebody saying something in their adventure story, with the emphasis on making sure that it's punctuated and capitalized properly. And then the students will, um, for the remainder of the lesson, that's pretty much it. They're going to add in some places for dialogue within their introduction. So to be more structured, like I said, you can make it be their hook. Okay, you have a descriptive one. Now let's try out a dialogue one, and then in
Hmm.
the end, we'll see which one you want to use for your when we revise and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which one you want to use for your introductory sentence. So perfect way to incorporate all that. And
Yeah.
that's it. If you want to add
Mhm.
something, Sarah.
Yeah, just a couple of things I was thinking about as you were going through the lesson. These might be some support. I know I've seen it before when we talk about dialect. We're really talking about dialogue tags, like those words that you add on after a character says something.
Says something.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I know there's an anchor chart, like words to use instead of said. The students will say it to
Mhm.
death.
Yeah, well, I remember that. They used to be in my room too.
Yeah, we don't want that. So offering that anchor chart to them,
Yes.
as some different options for dialogue tags instead of said. And then sometimes the words on there can be a little bit intimidating for them if they don't know what they mean. So maybe just picking out a couple and acting them out so they know what the word means. They can see how the character is saying it.
Yeah.
Um,
And yeah, you're right. Like, because like that example with growled,
yeah, act that
there's a
out.
reason why they put growled because of that character. They had to
Mhm.
think about that character and how they were,
Yeah,
what kind of character they are,
yeah, and you
personality.
said it. Yeah, it's word choice. That was intentional.
Hmm.
Having them be intentional about their dialogue.
Absolutely.
Um, and then also I thought about going back to their rubric. Don't wait till the last minute to bring up the rubric. The dialogue is on there in the language section.
Mm.
Um, and it talks so beginning the story does not include any dialogue. So they just did not do it. That shouldn't be a problem because you're working on it in this lesson. So they should have some
Yeah, I see
developing.
that.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna say yeah, I see it down there in the
Mhm.
language.
Developing the story only includes dialogue once. Strong includes some dialogue, but it does not contribute to the plot development. That's what I would see a lot. They would have like, "Hi," she said. "Bye," he
Right.
said. That's two. You got two,
Right. Yeah,
but it
that's
didn't do anything
good.
for the story.
I'm glad you pointed that out. How it goes with the plot. How is
Yeah.
it helping or enhancing the plot? Helping you understand as a reader
Yes.
what's happening in the plot. Yeah, those major events. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it needs to be moving the story forward. It can't just be there just to be there.
Hey, welcome.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Nothing that didn't make anything happen.
Well, you know what? I'm so happy you brought that up because that just shows the importance of the collaboration after you've internalized the lesson.
Yeah.
Because see, that didn't cross my mind, but now it makes sense. When I
Yeah.
read this, I was like, okay, dialogue. I thought about the word choice and characters, but tying it in to the plot, like that
Hmm.
is heavy. So that's why we have PLCs and collaborative, so we can bounce ideas and give
Yeah.
and gain from each other. You know,
Yeah.
take away, share and take from each other.
Yeah, because we all have kids who do, they have their two pieces of dialogue, but then we go
Yep.
back later and use the rubric like, oh no, but
Yeah,
it didn't contribute to the plot development. So,
absolutely.
yeah, so our ultimate goal is to have several instances of dialogue that sound natural and further the plot line. That's three things. So, more than two, really. It sounds natural and it moves the plot along. That's hard.
I was gonna say that's
Those are
what.
hard things.
Yes, it
'Cause
is.
so it has to sound authentic to the character. Like you said, that character growled for a reason because it went with his character. So,
Right.
like you said, having them think about their characters and what they would do, how they would say their lines. That's sounding natural.
Yeah.
Um, while they're talking, moving the story along. So that's things that the teacher is going to really have to be intentional about when they're
Absolutely.
circulating, just like talking to the students about that in their drafts.
And I would also say, I know we mentioned before about having this class story, but to me,
Yes.
it would be ideal right then to talk about that. What I missed, like my dialogue can't just be hi. No, it needs to
Yeah.
further the plot. So doing that together so they could see how that looks, because right here they not showing us how it looks. To me, that would be
Hmm.
enhancing it. I'm gonna enhance the curriculum and show how that what that looks like. I mean, to me, that's really gonna be helpful to the kids because the kids are only going to get so much by saying, okay, look at the rubric. It needs
Right.
enhancements. It needs to have contribute or what is. I'm trying to find what it is. Don't tell me. It includes several dialogue. Anyways, what I'm saying is actually seeing it and doing it together is going to make it a lot easier when they go and jot those ideas out on their paper because you can tell them that's going to be
Hmm.
hard on you one on one with everybody trying to nope, this is not enhancing it, does not go with the plot. So great points.
Yeah, I think you have to. You have to do this with them, or you might have a few kids who are future novelists that
Right,
can do it,
right.
but like it's hard, like you said. So do please don't expect kids to be able to do this on their own. That's not realistic at all. You have to support them.
But even to us, and then at the end when we're grading it, no, they don't have it, they don't have it. Was it taught? You know what I'm saying? You said
Hmm.
it. Did you show it? So
Yeah.
just insights is very insightful.
And were you checking at the end of this? Were you checking in 10 so that you would know in 19
Before
who
they
did and
even,
didn't have it? Like you can't wait until the end. Be like, oh no, they didn't have any dialogue. How
yeah,
did that happen? Did you look at their writing
right,
before
right.
lesson 19? So
Well, that concludes writing, and that's lessons, at the end of lesson 10. So we hope this is so helpful, and we hope to see you back for lesson 11.
all right.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.
Have a wonderful Mother's Day, all the mothers out there.
Yes, happy Mother's Day. Enjoy your weekend.